So we can always pause if we want, it's no problem, I'm doing no rush, but yeah, did you get the right date and right venue? It's not like they're sitting around the corner somewhere, are they?
There. Put a reminder up.
Alright.
Just one other announcement. You may have seen coming in signs for what's it called, Love Supreme. It's a festival they hold once a year at Glynde Place, and the traffic is chaos. And Dave was saying that Branscombe Lane may not be accessible from this end. There'll be queues of traffic trying to get in. So if it's a Caburn day, the best option would probably be to come in the other end of Branscombe Lane off the A27. If you're coming that way, you have to go down the roundabout and back. Just avoid Glynde, basically. I'll put something on site reports. Gary, the floor's yours.
Okay. Right, so some of you might know me, some probably might not, probably none of you do. You'll probably hear me before you see me if you ever see me on the hill, because I have a reputation of talking quite a lot, and I will try to keep it down to a minimum here, okay, so you'll want to go home. But obviously I've just done 6 weeks in Oludeniz. It was a plan I hatched last year, which I thought, well, this could be interesting. And it was, yeah, I wouldn't say it was an adventure, it was one hell of a journey. So this basically covers some of the bits and pieces that went on there, as I said, the good, the bad and the ugly. So I'm going to cover a whole lot. So hopefully you'll find it entertaining. So you're not going to die by death by PowerPoint either, so there's not many slides, don't worry, it's not like being in a corporate. So that's just basically what I'm going to run through. So who am I? Basically my first SIV, which was only 18 months ago, how I got into the introduction to Acro, then obviously returned to Turkey for 6 weeks, what's going to happen next, and more importantly, what's in it for you? Because hopefully some of you will pick some bits and pieces out there that might be useful to you if you ever think about taking this journey, or just in your flying in general, and the people around you, and how you approach things, or more importantly, as I found out, how you don't approach things. So I've made probably just about every mistake I can possibly make, and one quite serious one, but that will all be coming up on the next bit. So yeah, that's me. That's, as you can see, I'm very good at Acro. It's not meant to be that way, it's not meant to be that shape, and I'm meant to be there. So Acro unfortunately goes wrong more times than it goes right, and it is a very interesting journey. I've been flying approximately 3 years now, obviously with the Southern Club. Take the normal route, started with Fly Sussex, tried sort of flying, get into the club environment, didn't really work out, took a year off, came back, had another go. Met a couple of people on the landing field, started flying with them, and that got the ball rolling to actually carry on flying. And that's sort of the first thing I learned with paragliding, is it's a hell of a lot easier if you fly with someone else. If you turn up a hill and fly on your own, it's quite a tough route, particularly early stages. If you can get in with some people and fly with them regularly, even if you just chat and arrange to meet up, it makes things a lot easier, because you'll find then that if you've got 3 or 4 people, the motivation in that group stays, whereas you're going to get a day when you go out and your little voice in the back of your head is going to start saying to you, oh, conditions are not looking good, or maybe you shouldn't go, or go tomorrow, and then that chips away and you start not flying. So if you can fly with a group of people, it does make it a lot easier because the motivation's there. I ended up flying with Steve over here last year, which I have to say was a very entertaining year. I think we flew just about every possible condition and day we could. But he's a very enthusiastic pilot, is Stevie, as you probably found out on the hill. So my first SIV, why Oludeniz? Well, everyone talks about it. Oludeniz is a fantastic place. I mean, look at that, it's absolutely beautiful, that's where you fly. So those pictures, both those pictures I took, and that's been in the air. So if you look at the picture on the left-hand side, you see the peak of the mountain, that's 1900. So you can take, that's 1900, you can take off from there. And the picture on the right is the view as you're coming down from 1900. And it takes you approximately 10 minutes from launch to get over to the sea. So it is a stunning place to fly. Weather's nice, people are fantastic, the scenery, as you can see, is amazing. But it is salt water. So if you're going to go in the sea, you're going to be doing a bit of washing, and I've done quite a bit of washing out there for myself and other people as well. the one question that everyone asks, is it dangerous? Any site is dangerous, it doesn't matter where you go. Every place has got risks. Oludeniz, because it is a mountainous site, the launches are quite intimidating, particularly 1850, because it's just like running off of the edge of a cliff over a road. It is, I think it is probably one of the best places in the world to certainly do SIV, and absolutely for Acro. Out there you find there's so many Acro pilots out there, that's where they go. They'll be doing 10 runs a day on there, and it is a fantastic place to fly. But it's not really the type of place that you want to go and visit as, say, a first trip to go and fly on your own. If you're going to do an SIV, you're going with a group, it's fantastic, it's a great place, but on your own, it's certainly not an XE, it's not an XE site. You don't want to be, you can, but you don't want to be flying around the mountains too much because the conditions there can get quite rough. So it's more, normally in the morning when I was flying, I'd fly in the morning. I wouldn't fly lunchtime, I'd fly later in the afternoon, because in lunchtime it does get quite thermic. And depending on the wing you're flying, can get a bit of a rough ride down. So from launch to going over the sea, if you make a mistake on launch, you haven't got your wing prepped properly, or you've got line twist, or you've got a tension knot, you've got 10 minutes, you've got to deal with that before you can get over the sea, before you're really safe to land. You can land out there, but you don't want to be. It's not the side of countryside you want to be landing out. But saying that, if you get a chance to go and you want to do an SIV, I can't think of a better place. It is salt water, so if you go in the sea, you are going to do some washing. So, but don't let that put you off. The people are fantastic. It used to be, last year, it used to be very cheap. It used to be 90 lira for launch and 40 lira for the cable car up if you were on a group. This year it was 210 lira for launch and 100 lira for the cable car, so it's like 140% more. So the prices have gone up a lot, food has doubled, accommodation has gone up, but it is still a great place to fly. And I would recommend it, if you want to do an SIV. Most of the people that do SIV out there, apart from the Russians, are all very well qualified, good schools. Fly Sussex are out there, Passion Paraglide are out there, Lee Trigon's out there, and Jockey Sanderson goes out there as well. So that's 4 of the schools that I know that go out there, the well-known ones. So first SIV I did was 18 months ago, and that was with Passion Paraglide Toby Cologne. I did it with Passion Paragliding because he's got a very good video on YouTube of an insight into doing an SIV where they followed 2 students. And when you first see the video, you see sort of a quite stocky guy, George, and another guy, which I can never remember his name, but he's ex-military. And you look at the pair and you think, right, the military guy's going to do really well and the stocky guy's not going to do as well. And as the video goes through, they just follow them through their SIV, it totally changes round. George actually does really well, and the other guy is the one that has more of the issues. Basically because George was very relaxed about it, and he just sort of got on with it, trusted in the instructor, whereas the other guy was a bit more regimented and tried to fix everything. But very, very good insight into doing your first SIV, why you should do it, and you look at it and you think, it's a nice place, so when you finish, there's nothing better than finishing your SIV run, standing on the beach, watching people land, go to the supermarket, grab yourself a beer, stand on the seafront and have a beer with your friends. It's a really good way to end the day. So, my first SIV was on a Buzz Z5, which had 100 hours, like every second-hand wing you buy has got 100 hours on it. It probably more about 200, I should think, because it was fairly tired, but it did SIV really, really well. So this is basically just the first SIV that I did. So at that point you shit yourself.
And just jump to one side, but the wind's got a certain heading, hasn't it? That's what we're interested in, the bleeding edge heading out to sea, just that's fine, so not too much weight. And it's very stable. That's good, so you can release the flaps going. Legs under the harness, you're looking at the wing all the time, off you go, slow it down symmetrically and push down. And lock down now, all the way down, good, lock down, keep it locked, good, lock down, ease up a little bit, ease up, good. A little bit more, yeah, there you go, nice outside, hands up, you're exiting, hands up. Good.
So that basically is the first and the one exercise that everyone thinks they have to do the full stall, and they go out, it builds up to doing the full stall in the SIV. you don't have to do a full stall. An SIV is for what you want out of it. So asymmetric collapse, as soon as I did that, or you're going out there and you think, God, I can't believe I'm just going to pull half a wing in, collapse it, and then see what happens. And then you do it and you think, oh, actual fact, that wasn't too bad. And from doing the first asymmetric collapse, that's when I thought, oh, I actually really enjoy this. I don't know why, but I really enjoy collapsing the wing and rebuilding it. And that, to me, I think is where the Acro route really started. The Z5 was a fantastic wing for SIV, really, really predictable, does a really nice tail slide. But you work your way through the course. There's going to be other presentations going to be done probably during the year, I'm sure, on SIV, because it's quite a popular subject at the moment.
So a couple of comments.
Yes.
We had Steve Purdy on SIV last month.
Yeah.
And I messaged Jenny Fleming, Fly Sussex. She's planning to do something next month. You talked about the wing. I think the accepted wisdom is whatever wing you fly, whatever harness you fly, that's what you should use.
Absolutely.
SIV. There's no point in learning to do skids on somebody else's motorbike.
No.
And you talked about the full stall. Yes, it's the end of the course and people tend to be terrified of it. But actually, once you've done it, it's, can I do it again? Can I do it again? And
it's the one thing you're probably not really going to use. The reason I've done so many is because of the route that I've taken, and that's it.
I'm not sure I agree, because there are certain situations when you get the thing in a right bugger's mud, and actually deliberate, if you've got enough height, a full stall and recovery is the best way to sort out a cravat or whatever you've got that's otherwise going to plunge you into the earth.
If you've got the height.
If you've got height,
yes.
Which around these sites, most of the time you won't have.
Yeah, I think to me the takeaway from the SIV was the asymmetrics, full frontal, because they're the asymmetric, full frontal and the auto rotation is the three most common things that you're going to get. In actual fact, I'd even say the asymmetric and the auto rotation, the two takeaways from the SIV. If you've got those and you understand it, they are going to get you out more trouble than anything else. So the asymmetrics are the one most likely you're going to have flying, and the auto rotation is the one that causes most people a problem when they don't know what it is. And an auto rotation is actually very easy to get out of when you know what's happening. But until you've actually felt that. But the full stall is the one that everyone builds up to, and you're right, you actually do it and you think, oh, that's actually not that bad.
We used to sing a song on the way up to launch.
It's it's a bit different on the other wing that I've got. I've gone from this one, then I went back to do, well, I'll see on the next slides anyway, but it's a great thing to do. I mean, I think, I actually think everyone, if you're going to fly long enough, you should be looking at doing SIV.
And more than one, I'd say, that you need to really repeat it regularly, so that...
Not as regular as me. It's been a bit excessive over the last 18 months.
Every couple of years?
Yeah. I think it's also changing kit as well. Particularly if you do the big step that people take is the low B to the high B. And I think if you do low B to high B, and then you start, and same thing if you change from that, as you see on the seat harness there, you change to a pod, absolutely, because they handle totally differently. I've SIV'd in the pod as well now, and that was a totally different experience. So, but lucky for me, that's very basic equipment I've got there. The Z5, fantastic wing for SIV, it's very predictable. The Maestro 2 was a bit more unusual, but you'll see that a bit later on.
The main alternative to Oludeniz is Annecy. One advantage of Annecy is fresh water.
Fresh water.
And certainly I did it, and a number of other people done it, of course, I've been in there, is a chance to do a reserve throw. I know you've got something to say about that later probably, but we did it voluntarily.
We had two guys when I was out there that did it. I went out in the boat with them and they did that. They had two voluntary throws.
It just takes away the fear and gives you confidence, yes, it will open. And going down a zip line is not the same.
It's not. No, I did the big fat repack with Steve a few months ago, went over there and I looked at the zip line and I thought, no, I'm not going down there. It's
waste of time.
It wastes time. It's not going to give you that. Because most of the people on the zip line, they were taking the reserves out, sticking them on the lap, and then, or they were going down the zip line, holding the reserve out. It's like, you need to do a proper reserve pull, as in find it and throw it, not stick it on your lap and then throw it on the zip line. I mean, anything is better than nothing. But, if you get the opportunity, a lot of people don't want to do it because obviously, of course, you've got all the kit to wash. I mean, the two guys that that did it out on Toby's course, and I was out there a couple of months ago. I said, look, if you're going to do it, I'll give you hand washing your kit. So I've ended up washing 4 sets of kit now. Salt water, yes, you don't want salt water in your wing. It takes 3 good washes to get it out. You've got to be pretty particular with washing it, but it does wash out, no problem at all, so long as you are particular about it. It's the risers where it really stays. The wing, it comes out very easily. It's the lines and the risers. And make sure your lines are dry before you fly them. So you don't want to be flying wet lines and then stretch the lines. Shrinkage, yeah. But salt water, you know, yes, there is that issue, but everything does wash out. And there's a lot of people go in the sea on a regular basis out there.
The other thing about reserve throws is that I think the HPA's done something about it. Steve may have mentioned it. They sort of changed the recommended approach. Instead of pulling it out and then swinging it as a second movement, they now say you should try and do it as a single movement, get it away as quickly as you can. I don't know what you've got to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ex-skydiving, so we have a different policy with reserve throws, which is what I apply to this. The BHPA termination, you should look, locate and pull. It doesn't work that way. Believe me, when you need to throw it, you're not going to be going, oh, right, where's this? You don't know what position you're going to be in. You'll see the two, well, you see one of the reserve throws on here. I do it by feel, and this is what Toby is now taking on his course as well, in that I know where my reserve handle is by putting my hand down the seam of the actual harness, and I know where the reserve handle is in relation to it, so I don't actually have to look. And on the second reserve throw that I had, yeah, I definitely had to use that. You know, you're not going to have the chance to look. If you can look and you can find it, great, but I just get in the habit of every time I launch is put your hand down the harness, find the handle, grab the handle, release, and it's muscle memory. You'll eventually know where it is.
You may be 400 feet when you have to do this, and as Gary says, you don't have time to do it. 2 things I always try and cover coaching on the hill. 1, before you launch, make sure that your reserves are properly installed and the pins are in place. But then once you're away from the hill, just put your hand down and feel it. If you do that every flight, you'll be able to find it when you need it.
And it does make a big difference. It's the first throw, the first reserve throw I did, it was just a case of it was fast, it was a case of directly just bang, straight out. And this thing about swinging it is straight out. And when you see the things I said, oh, well, if you're at this angle, then it should be at this, it should be this, it should be that. Get the thing out. Yeah, there's a lot goes on when you have a reserve throw, because you're going to be disorientated, you're in a situation where you're not exactly sure what's going on, you want to get the reserve out. You'll see, what's the next video actually, is this one here. So this will be my first reserve throw on here. Before I run it off, basically what happened, all it was a stall. As I came out the stall, I got a cravat on a wingtip, not a massive one, but as it's gone round, I've then got riser twists, and I've got 4 riser twists in one rotation, which has just locked everything on. So then, as you'll see the result, what it does, and then it was a reserve throw. It was very high, and when I actually landed, I said to Toby, was that too early or should I have fought it? And he went, oh, no, you could have. And I said, well, he didn't see the riser twist, and he said, no. Once you got riser twist, once you get enough, normally 3 rotations enough, and you lock the brakes on, he said, get the reserve out, because that's just going to put you into a nose-down spiral very quickly, which you'll see from this.
You know what to do, tight body, legs in, wait a minute, off you go. Nice down slow. Okay, dropping in again.
There's a cravat.
As you can see, wonderful.
There's a riser twist gone round.
Okay, nice. Hello.
Yeah, it picks up quick.
Okay, you've got a reserve now, so bring in the mate. And reach up and over hand.
It also shows why it's really important when you've got a beamer to get that main in quickly. Look how much it's winging around until you can get that main collapsed.
So
they're actually very nice to fly.
Hand over hand to get to the main.
Med andra gillar katter.
It's steerable, isn't it? So if you can get the main in between your legs, then we can go to steering mode and try and land it. You need the main in between your knees first. To get as much of that slot in between your knees, stuff it in the harness, and then we'll go flying the steerable. So stuff it in. Once you've got it stuffed in, we'll get most of it stuffed in, not all of it tucked in between your knees before you go steering your steerable.
And that's easier said than done. Your wing all of a sudden seems to be 3 times the size it was when it's on the ground.
Should we just wrap it all sideways?
Just bundle it up and shove it under your legs.
We can hold it in there, it's not going to whip out, then we're good to go and try and steer. So reach up above your shoulders to find the handles, if you haven't already, and pull them, and then you're into steerable mode. And we've got so much higher than that, so we can try and steer this one to the beach. If we're aiming for the beach, then you can go that way already. Maybe you're still putting in the lane, that's fine. If you land in the water, it's not a problem. But let's see, if you've got into steering mode already, guys, then try and judge your glide angle. See, it's not super good, it's about 4 to 1 on that thing, and we can steer it towards the beach. We're going to take a big bit of beach, so the left-hand side, left of Oludeniz, is where we're going to aim for, so we've got lots of space there. And it's looking good.
So you can hear Toby on the radio, you're just throwing your reserve, and that's what you want to hear on the radio, very calm and relaxed. You hear the Russians, they're just yelling at their students, and it's just incredible that they survive. But you do SIV, that voice will be in your head for the rest of your life. There's certain things that he'll say that you'll be in and you'll hear that come back. But I got to say, I found Toby was actually fantastic with his calmness all the way through. So he's giving you the information you need as you're working on it, but then you're not getting too much. I'll do this. But I was lucky that one I landed on the beach. So I was very high. It was a long way out, but I flew that one to the beach. I'm one of the few that's actually landed a beamer on the beach. Lucky for me, when it came out, as you can see, it wasn't twisted. No riser twist on it, so it's flyable. They are actually very nice to fly, and they've got quite nice flare on them as well when you land.
Came out very quickly, didn't they?
They do come out very quickly, and it's not a big jolt. So you think reserve coming out is going to pull you back. It does slow you down. But as you can see from that, is that once you get riser twist and you've got those brakes locked in and you get into a nose down, it will go very quickly. So from just one rotation, you can see it picking up, and that's when I thought, okay, I've lost this one. And that was when you just make the decision on the reserve throw, so there's no criticism from Toby whether it was too high or whatever. He said, if you think the reserve needs to come out, you put the reserve out. But it does come out quickly, and it comes out controlled. So, and it is, that was the first reserve I've thrown through a paraglider. I've done it through skydiving, which are different, but that's the first one with a paraglider. And it is nice to know that you can find the handle and you can throw it and it comes out. So it's, that was the first one. And then you say when we landed, I thought, well, did I throw too early? But it's not till you look to the video afterwards and you can see the riser twist, and you went, no, because that's gone. You're not gonna recover that one.
So you talked, Rob, about it opening quickly. I think maybe in Steve's talk when he emphasised the importance of regular repack, it's like 6 monthly, because if you don't, it won't open nearly as quickly.
Yeah.
Was that a new one, Gary, or was that had that been repacked? That one?
That was factory fresh. So that was factory fresh, that one. So that was only, that was 2 months old. So that was straight out. It's been repacked and thrown again since then. So, but they, second time I've been since second time.
You're on eBay in 6 months. One careful owner.
One more.
No sea landings.
Yeah, no sea landings. No SIV. Yeah. But on here, I'm on a different harness here. I'm on an Acro 4 here, and I change wings. I'm on a loaded Epic. When I went back to an introduction to Acro is basically 2 weeks of stalls. That's what you're doing. You are stalling the wing for 2 weeks with a few fun bits thrown in just to keep you interested. You'll come back after 2 weeks. Your arms are totally shot. But that's how you start dialing into the stalls. Now I had a BGD Epic medium, and I was just over the top of the weight range on it, which was what you do for learning Acro. You load them up. It makes them they're very pitch stable, but very roll unstable, which is what they're great for. Last year, everyone was using these for Acro training, the same thing. This is the route we took. Unfortunately, as they found out this year, it's taught a couple of bad habits, which came back and bit me in the arse for the next trip. So that's now become apparent. So you'll see what comes out on that. But I've got a new harness, so I've got an Acro 4, which has got 2 reserves in it, which is quite nice to have. It's a big lump, but it's like flying an armchair. It's such a lovely thing to have in the air, but it's horrible to climb up a hill.
So you use 2 beamers? Or
No, you only have one steerable, one standard.
Yeah, there was a good discussion on cloud-based mayhem with a Russian guy in the last episode. And he was an ex-skydiver who now has a business repacking parachutes and so on. And That's one of the things they were talking about.
Yeah, you only ever have one steering wheel in there, because otherwise you get two steering wheels, you get those both out, they'll bite me, and then you can't get rid of them. So, and they've also got quick outs on there as well. So the idea is that with quick outs, that also came back to bite me as well. With the quick outs, if you need to get rid of the main, you can do, just have the reserve. But obviously you need to know what's going on around you at the time. So I've got quick outs on there, and there's certain things with quick outs that you have to do. If you're flying with quick outs and you do an acro run, you disconnect the speed bar. So you don't do your acro run with the speed bar on, because if you have to use your quick outs, the last thing you want is your main, as you just said, still connected with the speed bar. Because now you're going to be connected with two lines to your wing that's partly jettisoned but not, and still attached to you. So you, as you do the run, they'll disconnect the speed bar, and that again came back to catch me out as well. So I'll explain that a bit later as well. So I've made lots of mistakes out there. Mistakes from not some of the things I did, but from the circumstances that were in, the decisions I made. But I own every single one of my mistakes, but I never make that mistake again. So let's have a look at what we got next. So the return, right, 6 weeks. So I was going back for 6 weeks after the 2 weeks. Toby from Passion Paradigm was great. He said, well, if you're going to come back from 6 weeks and you're committed to doing that, then I will give you a hand with training. And he was an absolute superstar out there for training and support. I then went back with new kit again, so I had the Acro 4, but I then changed to a U-turn Morpheus, which is what they call a beginner acro wing. And believe me, there's no such thing as a beginner acro wing. That has a D rating on it, and how the hell it got that, I don't know, because all acro rings are unrated. They can't get them through certification because they are designed to be unstable. They are quite nice to fly in a straight line, but as soon as you start throwing some turns in with them, they change. The dynamics of those things are incredible, and the energy they generate because of the length of the lines and the type of the wing. So that was the plan, going back in April for 6 weeks. I didn't know exactly what I was going to let myself in for. I knew I would come back a different pilot. I have come back a different pilot, but I'm not exactly sure what type of pilot I am at the moment, and what bits am I comfortable with and what bits I'm not comfortable with. It was quite a mental journey, mentally challenging as well as physically challenging for what went on out there. So that was the companies that I decided to speak to. Passion Paradox is Toby, because I've been working with him and he can do an introduction to Acro for me. And then everyone recommended Lee Trihorn. If you've never met the guy, you want to meet him. He's an incredible guy. He's just total paragliding all the way through. Fantastic guy, really, really helpful. And I booked a week's training with Lee as well, because that's then I could get a week with him. And that was going to be into Acro, and I was going to do an introduction, carry on with Toby, building up to it, and also had my Maestro 2 and a pop harness, which I wanted to do SIV, because I was planning on going to India at the end of this year, which I've now decided I'm not doing. So quite a busy 6 weeks. So that's when it all started to get more interesting.
There was a post today, there's usually a group goes off for beer
Yeah,
near Dharamsala in October,
yeah,
but someone pointed out that the Cricket World Cup's happening,
yeah.
and half of that's happening in October in Dharamsala.
Oh, well,
So it seems to put a kibosh on beer as a place to be in the autumn.
oh, right, okay. Oh, that's news to me. I didn't know that. So,
Nor did the people who'd already bought air tickets.
no, I've lost my air ticket, but that's a case of. It's basically what happened as well as out there. The course that I'm taking with paragliding has changed slightly, as in the way I think about things and what I want to do is now slightly different, or maybe a lot different. I don't know, depending on how you look at it. For me, it's slightly different. I'm just taking a different direction at the moment. I might come back to what I was doing. I don't know yet. It doesn't matter what you do in paragliding as long as you enjoy it. That's what I always say. Is it's whether it's XC, whether it's acro, whether it's paramotoring, whether it's accuracy. Whatever you do within this sport, as long as you enjoy it, then that's the right route for you. Because we're not here to be competition pilots. We're here for the enjoyment of the sport. It is a challenging sport, and it is a dangerous sport. No matter where you look at it, we try and be as safe as we can, but there is inherent risks with it. So, but the most important thing is the enjoyment. As long as you enjoy the sport, doesn't matter what you do, then that's what you go with. So, so week 1 was full SIV on the Maestro 2 and a pod harness. So, of course, obviously I've done quite a bit of SIV before, so I was going back quite confident. New wing, I'd only got about 10 hours on the Maestro 2. Great wing to fly. Never let SIV'd it. Toby hadn't SIV'd it, so we thought we'd see where we go. So this was speed bar isometric. This is it there. Fun enough, that's my old wing there. That's Chris flying my old wing. That's a Z5 there. So that's a different speed bar makes with it. You see the size of that now. So yeah, that was, the full frontal was quite interesting on a full speed bar, but the interesting bit from that video for me was it showed you how much you drop, because that was Chris White behind me flying my old Z5, which is the guy that worked with Toby on launch. He's followed me down and you can see he's static in the air, and you can see when you do full frontal, you can see how much you actually drop. You do drop quite a bit. It's, yeah, very nice wing to fly. It was actually pretty predictable through SIV. Auto rotations, it's not particularly nice on though. It does whip around in auto rotation, but it doesn't want to go in. You really have to make that wing work hard to go into an auto rotation, which is actually a good thing. Because if you do get in a situation, it's not going to want, quite a few times we've been trying to set it out and it will just basically sit there and stabilise itself. But when you do get it to go in by notching it in, it then does whip around quite a lot.
One comment on SIVs, for those that fly ENA gliders. Sometimes ENAs are quite difficult
Yes.
to get to do what the instructor's telling you to do, because they just want to fly safely and straight. Also things like beeline stalls, some of them won't do that.
No. I mean, that's a high B. It's a very nice wing to fly. And that wing now, compared to the other one that I've got, which I have been flying, that now feels like a pussycat, but that's not me being blasé about the actual wing. That's just down to doing the SIVs, and it's quite a comfortable place for me to go to do an SIV now. I've got to look forward to doing that, because it's a case of you putting it into controlled simulated situation. But you know, it can still go wrong, and that's with the pod. And having the pod, it's a totally different sensation in the pod. The one thing they'll teach you on SIV, they said, oh, when it goes, you need to bring your legs in. That's not as easy said than done, because when you do it, you want the natural instinct to bring your legs in to make it like a seated harness, so you don't swing around, so you don't get the pendulum effect. But quite often, I mean, as you can see on there, and that was fairly on, I still have a leg straight out. So you're so focused on the wing that you end up realising you've still got my legs straight out. But yeah, it's the first SIV is almost an exercise in fear management, or getting accustomed to what you're doing. It's the second one you go back when you really start to learn. And this was now my third, fourth, whatever, depending on what you take out the acro side of things as well. And that's when you really do start to learn. That's when the sort of the finesse comes in, when you really start to understand the wing. But that was on the Maestro 2. That was a great week. Went really, really well, and was enjoyable. And then we were doing other bits. This was a fun one to do. This was spin to tail slide.
Off to a good start. Playing cool.
So it's effectively spin straight to tail slide. Really nice manoeuvre to do.
Yeah. Like a color, is that going around the horn?
It does cravat.
Okay, we're up. Go. Fire. Go. Dice. Go. Roll. Go. Top. Go. Jizzy. Go. Econ. Go. Surgeon. Go. We're up. Go. Fire. Go. Dice. Go. Roll. Go. Top. Go. Jizzy. Go. Econ. Go. Surgeon. Go. That's not where it's over. Okay, everybody, let's hang tight and look for the landing radar. 75 feet, 7.5, funnel to alarm. 15 seconds. We're contact. We're going that way. 20 feet down, 2.5. Give the dust for your time when we go.
So as the title says, all good so far, and it was. That was a really nice week. And then it was about to change. And that was the reasons why.
I was going to suggest we had a break at some point.
Yeah.
Spend money with Dave. Is this a good point to break?
Absolutely. Probably is a good. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Just be good. Yeah, that's fine. We can take a break now if you like.
Reconvene in 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've seen all the nice bit. Now you'll get to see the fun bit. So.
We were making sure you come back for the second half.
So we need a bit more fortification before we go into that.
Did you bolt the door in front?
Might as well get
Yeah.
going.
Yep.
So, week 2, and this is when things start to get interesting. I came out of flying the Morpheus, not the Morpheus, the Maestro 2 on the bod harness, doing SIV, and I came out overconfident. I had flown the Morpheus, but not particularly. I haven't particularly the lock because I couldn't get the height over here. I did know that flying that wing, when you started to do some aggressive turns with it, the whole dynamics of the wing changes. There was also some hidden bad habits that I learned from the Epic, one very bad one, and this was going to come back and bite me very, very quickly. The Epic is a very pitch stable wing and very roll unstable. That's what makes it fun to fly, particularly when you load it up. It turns it into like a freestyle wing. But what you can do with the Epic is you can let that wing dive right to the horizon, and if you do nothing, you don't catch it, it will just collapse in front of you, pop back up, reinflate. Well, the Morpheus won't do that. If you let it dive, it just carries on, and it carries on, and it carries on, and it generates a hell of a lot of energy very, very quickly. So I went out with the skills that I'd learned on the Epic and also on the Maestro 2, and I went out and flew the Morpheus. And all I did was I did a spiral and I did a fast exit out of spiral. And this was the result. I went through the lines. So I missed the wing by about 2 foot, but I went through the lines. I had lines around my head, around my arms, around my body, around the harness. And when you get to the end of this video, there's no video internal, I didn't have a camera on me, but look at what's hanging underneath me. Anyone guess what that is?
Reserve.
Yeah. That was my secondary reserve. It got ripped out as I went through the lines and it didn't deploy. And that was a brand new factory packed Charlie Square, and it didn't deploy. As I've gone through the lines, I looked down, I could see it, and I thought I've got to wait before I went for the beamer, because the last thing I wanted to do is have that deploy underneath me and then throw another reserve out and throw it into that. So I still had the beamer as effectively my secondary. But at this point, I'd actually gone through the lines. So what happened is I'd actually didn't catch the wing as it came through and dived, and it went right underneath me, right down underneath me. I got over the top of the wing, and then I'm looking down at my wing, and there was a gap sort of that big between my wing and the sea, and that's where all the lines was. So I went through the lines, so I decided to go through the lines. So probably the second worst thing you can possibly do. The worst thing you could do is end up in the wing. So I've gone through, dragged all the lines through with me, they're all wrapped around my head, from harness. So you go through as a rectangle mess. It's a bit like going through a cheese slicer. Had a lovely line burn around my neck for about 2 weeks while I was out there. But as it's gone through, my secondary reserve is dorsal mounted, which is back here. It's pulled the handle out of that, pulled the deployment bag out, and then the reserve has come out, and then the reserve didn't deploy. So, so that was the first one gone. And then I then got to get the secondary, the main reserve, which was the beamer, and that wouldn't come out because I got the lines wrapped around my harness. So that's the case of, that's when you just pull for all your might. The third pull, it came out, threw that one out. Someone said to me, well, why didn't you use your quick outs in this situation? Two reasons. One, I couldn't see the main, the reserve or the main, so I didn't exactly know what I got over my head. All I knew is the main was spinning around, but it was actually giving me quite a bit of drag. But more importantly, I've just gone through my lines, so I don't know where those lines are. If I then release the quick outs, I don't exactly know what's tied up around me, so I could then be having those lines coming up and then hanging around my neck. So not something you want to put on your Christmas list, not something you want to do. And that was all down to overconfidence, a couple of little hidden habits that I got into, and underestimating the wing, thinking, oh, it's, this is a nice wing to fly, and it's a lovely wing to fly. I really do like flying it now, but it took another 4 weeks to get back to, a good wing to fly. You need to understand those wings, and those wings are totally different. It's like learning to fly all over again. But yeah, not something you want to do, and that's the only footage I've got. That was from the boat driver. So that was my first wash in the sea, first and only wash in the sea. I only went in once, but yeah, not something you really want to be doing. So reality check, overconfidence can be a really, really bad thing.
Are you flying with a hook knife?
Pardon?
Are you flying with a hook knife?
Yes, but it was in a pocket. So
Not rigid.
yeah, no good there. It's now here, so it's now here. But it's one of these things that, I learned from that one. I learned a lot of lessons from that one. And he said things like the hook knife, where the hook knife is. No point in having it in a pocket. You're not going to find it there. To be honest, would I've actually probably used it in the air? My concern there was the descent rate was good. I was swinging around underneath it. I could see the sea coming up. I thought, right, I'm going with what I've got. So, I've got a lot of drag from the main wing still half out. I've got the reserve behind it, so I'm taking what I've got into the sea with me. And that sea wouldn't come up fast enough. You're actually looking forward to landing in the sea. The other one I would say from that is anybody that flies over water and doesn't have a life jacket, you're asking for trouble. I had 275 life jacket, which is quite a large one, which Toby uses out there. I had one of those on. Now with the Acro harness, when I landed in the sea, the first thing that happened is you turn turtle. I went face down. So the harness turns you over straight away, so you are facing down in the water. And you think you can just paddle around and you won't. You're face down in the water, you wait for the life jacket fire off, life jacket fires off, round you go, and your face is about that high above the water.
Has that harness got
It's a
a back protector in it?
Yeah, big bump pack, and it's big.
So
big. Yeah.
that floats, and you go underneath.
That's it, you're face down in the water, so you just sit there, you wait for the life jacket to go off, and you probably could roll yourself on the side, but you're sitting doggy paddling while you're waiting for the boat to recover you. The good thing about Turkey is there's boats in the water all the time, apart from Sunday. That's the only day Saturday is the only day you don't want to be really flying out there, because you've got the SIV groups out there, and there's always a couple of boats hanging around to pick people up to go in, because that's sort of how they make a bit of extra money. So, and if you get picked up by a boat, it's £60. So £60 recovery fee for you out the water onto the beach, and believe me, this is the best £60 you'll ever spend. You're not going to have a problem. If they turn up with a credit card machine, you'll be like, yeah, no problem, I'll swipe that. So it's just a relief that, and they are there very, very quickly. I was in the water probably 10-15 seconds before the boat was there.
About the same as the price of getting a wing out of a tree in India.
There's another picture coming up actually. That's 50 quid. That's actually 50 quid in Turkey. Yeah.
You're wrapped up in lines in the water, it's never going to be good.
Yeah, but so from that, this is where having the right people around you really matter. Now, I'd only met Lee. I've got a week's book with him in 2 weeks' time. Had a chat with him in the hotel, lovely guy, and then I get this on my phone.
Hey buddy, how you doing? Listen, I think you had a bit of a scary one yesterday. So I just wanted to make sure you're alright, just to check in with you, see how you're doing. I haven't seen you around again, but I was wrong today. You can be told, I hope you're okay, buddy. Sometimes things like that are a little bit, whoa, and you get on the back from the touch. I'm super happy to go everything with you. If you have your camera, I'm super happy to look at your footage. Yeah, because I know, you know, it's a new wing as well, and it can really upset the chi, you know. My subconscious starts to kind of get kind of like, I don't know how these kind of things can start to play in the head. So yeah, just wanted to check in with you, buddy, just give you a bit of moral support. You know, it happens every now and again, this type of thing. We pick ourselves up, dust ourselves down. The most important thing is to understand exactly what happened and how we would prevent that happening in the future. But yeah, just checking with you, buddy, really, so make sure you're okay.
That's the type of people you need around you. And that's, I haven't, you know, it goes around result very quickly when something happens that's a bit traumatic, and, you know, Lee basically just gets on my phone and I get that message from him. And as the expression said, it's good to talk, and it is. You need to talk about things like this, because I was fine straight after that. Next day, no, it wasn't good. Day after that wasn't good. And then it starts to eat into your subconscious, and little monkey in the back of your head starts saying, don't go up, don't do this, and it gets tougher, and it gets tougher, and it gets tougher. So having the right people that you train with is really, really important, and making sure that you keep positive people around you and not negative people, not people that are going to give you their opinion. I've got very strong views on that now. God help anyone that gives me their opinion from now on, because all it is, it's just a negative way of doing it. You know, the first thing that happens out there, the first thing you want to hear is, are you okay? Not, oh, you shouldn't have done this. Oh, yeah, you're stupid doing that. Or you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. There's different ways of getting that information across. And opinions, to me, are not the way of doing it, you know. So,
That point about support, I think, applies just as much if you do a crap landing in cable landing field as what Gary's experienced. You know, there are coaches, there are fellow pilots. Don't bottle it in.
Yeah, speak to them. And that's what really helped me. Because you feel totally isolated, totally alone. You feel an absolute fool. You think, Christ, I can't believe I've been that stupid to do that. The first thing I will say is own your mistake. Like going through the lines, yeah, there's the reasons that I said afterwards. What, you know, someone said to me, do you know what happened? I said, I know exactly what happened. I've got a perfect mental picture of what went through. The only thing is we didn't know why it happened, what I'd actually done to do it. And that was the next bit to come. So the first thing is own it. If you own it, then you can work with that. It's a fantastic learning tool. You know, you can look at it and think, right, that went wrong. Now I need to work out what I've done wrong. You hear all the time with people on launch, and New Haven's a classic. Oh, free gust of wind came through and picked me up. Chances are you were flying conditions that you shouldn't have been flying, or you set up wrong, or, you know, you were rushing your launch. Those are the things you want to look at, not the free gust of wind, or I stumbled on launch because I put my foot in a rabbit hole. No, you didn't check the ground in front of you. You know, it's own the mistakes. The minute you own the mistakes, you can learn from them very, very quickly. But all the time you blame someone else or the weather conditions or something else, you never learn from it, because you always think it's not me, it's something else. So, it's, you know, own the mistakes. Be proud of them to a certain extent, because it's a learning process. We're all going through it, you know, and chances are, I know for a fact now that what I did there, some of the top pilots out there and some people that I know out there have done the same thing, you know, and they know the feeling, and it is a horrible, horrible feeling when you do that. So, there we go. And then Toby came up as well, and he said, right, we need to get a plan, we need to get an action plan going forward, we need to find out what's happened. So, with Lee and Toby, they put together basically where my problems were. So a couple of days later, my confidence had been absolutely shattered. You know, it was like, it was just gone. My subconscious was going absolutely mad in the back of my head, saying, don't fly, don't do this, to the point that I wouldn't even spiral. I wouldn't even get on the Maestro 2 and I wouldn't spiral it. I thought, I'm not spiraling it, because if I don't spiral it, nothing's going to go wrong. Even though I know I could do it and it's not a problem, the subconscious just gets in there and it can dig in deep. But the most important thing there was what went wrong. We need to find out what went wrong, what I had done to cause that situation, and then make a plan going forward. So I went up with Lee, and we did a stall run on the Morpheus, and believe me, I'm absolutely shitting myself right now. And around we go. 2 rides and twists, but I stopped it. A bit of swearing always helps. but I'm quite low there. If you look how close the sea is, that was a very long, low glide to the beach. And that was, a couple of days after I'd gone through the lines. And from that, Lee saw it straight away. He said, "You whipstalled it." So what I've actually done is gone to catch it, stalled it in front, wings gone back, stalled it here, and as it's come back the next time, it's just shot forward, and then I've gone and stalled it in front. So I've actually whipstalled it. So with the second bad habit I was getting to with the Epic is the Epic, if things weren't going well, or say you could just restall that wing wherever you wanted it to. It could be flying in the front, I could just restall that, no problem at all. With the Morpheus and Acro wings, if they want to fly, you've got to let them fly. So as it's in the front, you can't restall that wing in the front, you've got to let it fly and then catch the dive. Whereas I was thinking, I'm not going to let it dive, I'm going to restall it in front of me and it'll be fine. By restalling the front, you then whipstall it and it goes right the way back, and then it comes back over a lot faster and a lot harder, and then gets a lot more unpredictable. So, but by doing that run, it was a horrible run to do, but then they could actually see what I've actually done because I had the camera on me this time. And then from that, you can then start training out of it. So what we did is took that wing off, put the Maestro 2 back onto my Acro harness, and then started retraining on stalls with the Maestro 2 just to get out of the scenario of whipstalling the wing, because the Maestro 2 is a lot slower and it was something I was familiar with. This wing, this wing was starting to scare me now because I wasn't familiar with it and I had quite a few nasty issues with it. It wasn't the wing, it was me, it was the way I was flying, so what we had to do was retrain me to fly that wing. And the way they did that was to put me back on the Maestro 2 for a week, do stall runs on the Maestro 2 to get the muscle memory and the process right to then go back onto that wing. And again, that's back to the thing of having the right people around you that know what you're doing and can see what you're doing. So you've probably seen the video for this one, so I've done it anyway. So it always looks a bit better with a bit of music. I'm not going to change. I'm going to live so hard, these broken wings will live into the sun, so I can burn up in the flames again and again. Excuse me. Goodbye. There's a million ways to die. Should have ran way back, should have ran way back by the roadside. Hello, goodbye. I was staring in the devil's eyes. The other thing you'll see from that is how useful it is to have a camera on you, because the first time I did it, no camera, so it's very hard to ascertain what I've actually done. Once you've got a camera, particularly 360s, 360 cameras are absolutely fantastic for video training because nothing gets hidden. You can move the camera around, you can look at what your hands are doing, and they are a very, very useful tool, but just bear in mind where you put them. Lead tri-hold will not teach you if you have a camera mounted on your helmet. They have to be chest or leg mounted. You won't have cameras on helmets for line snacks, and to be honest, after me going through the lines, I wouldn't want a camera mounted up here. But basically, XC stuff over here, you're probably not likely to do what I did, but for acro training, you won't train someone if you have a camera mounted on a helmet for that reason. So as I said, so what we did, we went back onto the Maestro 2, back onto the stalls, and we retrained to get rid of the bad habits. So sometimes it is, one step back, 2 steps forwards, or in this case, 2 steps back, 1 step forward. And I was just thinking, I was 4 weeks and I was further back than I was on week 1, and that's what it felt like. And you just think, I'm learning nothing out there. It's not till you finish and you come back, you realise what you have actually learned. So we got to week 5, and the next little issue I had, which some of you might know about. And this is where it really comes into support, not criticism, and sod your opinion. Because as some of you probably know, I know Robin definitely knows, there was a storm that went through Oludeniz very, very quickly, very severe. We had 20 pilots, some of 45 kilometres away, taken back over the mountains. It went through quickly. I ended up going into the town. I ended up landing in the town. So my mistakes on that was I was on the 1200 launch low. I've been up there with Chris from Passion Paragliding. All the students had gone. Weather conditions were looking absolutely fine. You could see the storm sitting out at sea. It wasn't going anywhere. But me and Chris reckon we got at least 45 minutes an hour before it's going to come into the town. We're just sitting out at sea. So normally with a storm in Oludeniz, you can see it coming in, you can see the black on the sea, you can see white caps, do what we do at New Haven. So we went to launch and I got a new radio and I'd key locked my radio. So my radio was locked to the wrong frequency, so I couldn't speak to Toby in the boat if I wanted to. So I said, okay, well I'll just fly down. So I flew down, so I got no radio comms. And because I was used to flying in the Acro harness and not connecting the speed bar, I took off with the Maestro 2 connected with no speed bar attached. So my speed bar wasn't connected, but not an issue, I was going to have a straight flight down. I got to about 300 feet off the beach and this storm came through like you wouldn't believe. It was fast. And I was about 300 foot off the beach and then I'm starting to go up and I've got no speed bar. All I've got is big ears and whatever I could do with that speed bar. Now if I had the speed bar on, chances I would have probably just about made it onto the beach, but with no speed bar, you lose a lot of your potential for forward speed, so I was going backwards into the town. The route I took was either going to be straight back into the cliffs and the trees and the power lines and the police station and the masts, which I didn't really fancy. So I took the option to go to the town, so I went into the town because there was a car park there, and as I went into the car park, over the power lines, there was a row of palm trees. So, oh, that's behind it, damn it. Let me just quickly get that for you. To the front, just get that for you. Back to front. There we go. Let's bring that up again. That's better. That was my landing spot, straight to the trees with my brand new wing. I went for the palm trees because a tree is better than a building. It's the best catch fence you're going to have. So yeah, second traumatic experience. Not proud of it. I made some mistakes, but the one thing that really got me was the criticism I got from a lot of the chat forums and the groups back in the UK. People that were criticising me for launching in a storm. It was irresponsible. I shouldn't have taken off. I was flying the wrong equipment. And funny enough, all these people that were criticising me, none of them were there. They were all sitting there tapping on the keyboards at home. So you are going to get criticism and you're going to get opinions, and this is when I realised that opinions really, they're out for their own ego. They're not there, oh yes, well I wouldn't have done this, I would have done this, how would you know what you're going to do in those circumstances? You know, I own my mistakes. My mistake was key locking the radio, not having any comms, because otherwise coming down, Toby could have probably said, you need to get down quick. The main one was not having the speed bar connected, and that was because of the routine I got into with an Acro harness. Never happens again now. I focus on the wing that I fly, not the harness I fly. So, you know, people make mistakes. I got lucky in the tree. That's 50 quid to get that out, and another 120 quid I think it was to get all the lines replaced, because I had 8 lines done, and there's a little hole in the wing which is going to the loft to be repaired. I got lucky. That was plan A, going to the palm trees. Plan B, if I'd have missed the palm trees, I'd have gone into the town with the roofs, would have been have the quick outs out as soon as I touched down the roof, get rid of the wing, but that's not an option I really wanted to have. You don't want to land in a town, it's not a good thing to do, but if you are going in there, then you have to prepare yourself with, right, you know, take the best route you possibly can. For me, those palm trees and the bushes were great. There's a big Gary-shaped hole in those bushes now, which is still there. I came through on the Acro harness, came through the tree and straight into the bushes. But to me, the bit, that wasn't the bit that got me, it was the fact of the criticism that I got for it, for people that weren't even there. Some people here on the chat forums that I actually respected as pilots, now I have no respect for them whatsoever, because if that's how they treat people, you know, not a case of are you okay? There wasn't a single question, oh, are you okay? You know, it must be about it. It was all about what I'd done wrong. And one person actually is he's a very good pilot and he's very high up. So I've taken myself out of all the chat groups. I'm not getting involved in any chat groups because they can be an amazing place to get information from. But be warned, they can also be very, very toxic, and I found the toxic side of it. So, you know, so as I said there, you know, can't have anyone that gives an opinion. Opinions are great, so long as they're put the right way, so long as they're put constructive, not about, you've done everything wrong, I would have done that because I'm so great, and that's the way it came across.
It's also one of the reasons why we discourage discussion of incidents on the Telegram groups. You know what they say about that?
Yes, because everyone chimes in. Yeah, everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got, was it, opinions like arseholes? Yes, yeah, some are bigger than
That's what I was
others.
thinking.
So be warned on that one, it is out there, and sometimes it will surprise you who it comes from, sometimes it won't, but you know, so I thought, right, so I just cut the ties with that and that's it, be done with it. So that's, the effect of that is I came back, part of me as a negative person, with some of the people I know in the club and some of the people outside the club as well. It's not just necessarily in the club, it's some other, you know, other people that I talk to. But there was one guy, funny enough, that actually criticised me in resort, which he won't do it again. And the next day he ended up going in the sea. So doing a self-training SIV, which was rather entertaining. So he was out doing SIV on his own. I'm going to do an SIV, and the next day he's in the sea. So I thought, okay, well, you know, would I go back and give my opinion? No. You know, first thing I said, you're right. That's it. Because the kit's all good. So rise above it. It is out there. You are going to find it. You've got to rise above it. And best thing I'd say is, if you get it, just walk away from it. You know, there's plenty of people out there that will help you. Plenty of people out there that are going to be positive. The right type of people. Keep the right type of people around you. Get rid of all the, you know, the bad ones. It's like an extension on ground suck, to be honest. You find we all know the ground suck scenario. And to a certain extent, probably all of us have done it a bit on, you know, when you stand at hill, oh, I don't want to fly. What you're actually doing is, I actually don't want to fly today, the conditions are okay, but I'm now trying to put that to someone else. So, but it does have an effect. So that was week 5, and now I'm getting pretty drained now, so 5 weeks out there. We got into week 6, and this was my week with Lee Trihorn, and I thought, great, I mean, I've got to the point now, I'm on the right wing, I've got the skills that I want now. Now we're going to get into a week of training. And then the weather decided to say no, so the weather closed in. We had 3 days of poor weather, so we had to do all of these 6 training runs on effectively 2 days. So we crammed those in. By now I'd actually got to the limit of my fear factor, what I could cope with, overload, what I'd gone through. But we still had some fun in the process. So I just wound everything back. So my wing overs were a lot smaller, but you can still have fun with them. Totally different type of training with Lee as well.
Sweet as a nut.
Darcy. So Lee's training you hear from that is totally different. It's a lot more energy. It's like the way some people would be like going down the pub with your best mate, knowing he's going to get you into trouble, but it's going to be good fun, but you're going to be safe. And that's Toby's was more like, you know, finding like your dad, you know, who's looking after you. But it's what I said. You've got to find the right people to train with, people that you know you've got to trust them in the air. So all I was doing there was we took it down to 10% of what I was doing on the wing, but just basically the finesse of keeping things smooth and tidy. Get that right, then you can build it back up. And Lee's training, his training goes all the way down to your landing as well, even down to your landing has to be good. You have to get it on the trailing edge. There's reasons for that as well, which he explained to me about. You know, you put the wing on its nose, for instance, when you damage the wing. But also more important is if you have the wing on its nose and the wing catches it, that wing's going to lift up. The first thing you're going to do is pull the brakes. It's not going to work because the wing's inverted, and then you can then get plucked with it as well. So he's saying is, you know, with his training, it's all the way down to the ground. You know, the flight's not finished until that wing's on the ground. You've got control of it. Yeah. So we got to that, and then we just did. I think it was. There we go. The last video, the last one. There we go. Show this one here. And this is what we finished off with.
I don't know if people saw this. In the SAT, the centre of rotation is between the wing and the pilot's going round backwards.
So you go backwards. It's a great move, and on the interesting on a SAT, again, one of the differences I found with on the serial wings, like an Epic for instance, you get into a SAT, and once you get into a SAT and you get it right, you cannot pull that brake any further. It's just like a solid bar. On an Acro wing, you can pull that further down, and you can actually stall it, so you can stall the SAT. But you get to an amazing point with it that I found that everything goes quiet. You get the wing right in front of you. You pull it, and all of a sudden everything goes quiet. There's this really fantastic, peaceful moment where there's no wind noise. You know, you can't hear the wing whizzing around, and it's just so peaceful. It's where you get this perfect balance between the slowing the SAT down as slow as it will go and stalling it. You're right on that limit. You can just see the tip of the wing start to go. But I mean, the SAT is one of the basic manoeuvres you do in Acro. I mean, for me to get to that took me 6 weeks to get to that stage, which I thought I would come back with a hell of a lot more than that. Acro's hard. You know, the journey you take on it is hard. Well, it has been for me. Some people are just natural pilots. There's a guy called Joel Brown in our club. He was out there. That guy's an incredible pilot. He just gets on and does it. But even he admits, he said, yeah, I'll go and do these things. He said, there's certain things that terrify the hell out of me when you go to do it. Acro is 80, maybe 90% mental ability. And that's my weakness at the moment. That's what I'm working on building up now. Where the fear factor comes in And funny enough, my fear factor is not when I'm actually doing what I was doing there, or when it's all gone wrong and I'm going to dig myself out of another hole. It's that 2 minutes before I actually get to do it. That's the bit that gets me, and that's the bit I'm now working on. Not because you think, what's the point in being scared? Those 2 minutes, you're perfectly safe. You're that is a big part of their sport, is the mental side of things, and that comes down to talking. I sat down for a meal on one of the last days and I couldn't even sit at a table with the guys that were on my group. I got up and left the table. I said, I can't do this. So I just wandered into town thinking I'd just go sit on the beach or what have you. Lee and Richard followed me up the street, came and found me, had a little chat, brought me back to the table, and we sat down and just basically worked through everything, worked out what was going on, how I felt, the effect it was having on me. And the fact that, but the best bit about it was the fact that all of a sudden I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel like that, this is just me. No, everyone goes through this process. It's just part of the training. So, it is so important to get the right people around you. I'm not saying that these are the right people for you. All I can say is, in my experience, the guys that I've trained with have been absolutely fantastic. But you've got to find the right people to train with, people that you click with. And I was just saying earlier on about one of the comments I hear quite regularly is when you say to someone, have you done SIV? And the first thing they say is, yes, I did mine with Jockey Sanderson. As if that makes any difference. Yes, he's a brilliant instructor, but it doesn't matter who you do it with, so long as you do it with a respectable company with a good reputation and people that you are going to trust, because you have to trust those people. The guys on launch, for instance, the guy in the boat, obviously. So find someone that you trust, someone you want to train with, and that's going to be the right person.
They do have a different approach to SIVs and different instructors and schools.
Exactly.
Some will have, here are 10 different exercises, right? Number one, number two. Some will watch you fly and tailor everything you do to what they see. So it is worth talking to other people about their experiences before you choose who to go with.
The Toby's is very customised. I mean, Steve's a good example because Steve came out of the SIV this year. Great seeing out there. And Steve really got SIV. To me, of all the people I've met, I know he's a mate of mine, but he really got probably the best out of the SIV because he went along, knew what he wanted to do, and then basically tuned his SIV to what he wanted to do. So you weren't right about stools, were you?
Not at all, no, and thankfully since coming back, 2 or 3 of the things that I practiced out there I've had to use since coming back, and potentially saved us from smacking into the ground quite quickly. So it kind of worked for the cross-country kind of stuff that I'm looking to do now. So it was really worthwhile. Sort of, and with Toby, that was quite handy. Sort of picking and choosing what you could do on a daily basis. It worked for me with him. But as Gary says, it's everybody's different, and you can go out there with the other guys, and they could be just as good for yourself. Any SIV is better than no SIV at all.
I think the SIV is for you, and it's a case of if you want to do something that is like a tick list, then fine. But if you want something that is more focused around you, then find a school that does that. That is prepared to, I mean, Toby's, the first 2 days it all starts the same. On day 3, everything goes in different directions, which is hard for him because it means that every run that someone's doing, they're all doing different things.
The other thing to bear in mind is that in the course of a day, there may be 10 people on your course, and there'll only be one pilot in the box at the time. So you may get one flight every 2 hours or so. You may get 3 in a day, and it doesn't seem like a lot of flying, but that's how it works.
2 is enough, to be honest. Two in a day is enough on SIV. When you do 3 in a day, when you have to catch up, that's hard going. You're knackered at the end of the day. And I think the main takeaway from SIV that you've got to think about is there's no badge for it, there's no certificate, there's no endorsement. SIV is for you. You know, you don't come away from anything with it apart from the experience and the skills that you learn from it. It's not like you get SIV written on your, your BHPA card, where you get I mean, we all like coming back with t-shirts. It's always nice to have a t-shirt. It's a very personal thing. And when you're on your SIV, don't concern yourself with what anybody else is doing. Focus on your flying and your flying only.
One thing it does teach you, and it's not about you as a pilot, it's about your wing. It teaches you how your wing behaves and how much trust you can actually place in it, particularly on a low-end wing. It's pretty hard to get it to do stupid things, as long as you don't do anything too stupid. It will get you out of trouble by itself a lot of the time.
Oh, it's pretty amazing what you can do with those wings, of how much you can actually collapse and the thing still wants to fly if you give it the right input, and knowing when to interact with the wing and when to leave the wing to do its own thing.
It's got ABS on the car.
Yeah. So that's basically it. My plans this year. I'm now off to learn to paramotor in August, so I'm doing that. So I'm having a go at that. Not exactly sure how I feel about flying at the moment. I'm not as enthusiastic about it as I was last year, but that's because my direction is changing and the way I'm thinking about it is different. XE, I don't know. There's other things that I can do. And it goes back to the same thing I said, is whatever you're passionate about and whatever you enjoy in paragliding, then that's what you should do. There's no one discipline better than the other. I like the Acro. The only downside, well, the big downside to Acro is it's damn expensive to do because you've got to do it in Turkey. It takes a lot of time and commitment and a lot of money. And the fear factor, that is definitely there. And that's the one thing that, I've done lots of things and I've never been scared of doing them. This is the one that's got me to that limit where I know where it is now. But it's a good place because now I know I do have those limits. I do have that natural fear within me. I'm not reckless. So now I've got to manage that. So my plans for 2024, I don't know yet. And that's the great thing. I'm not possibly going out for 2 weeks or 4 weeks in 2024, but I don't know. Let's get through the first 4 and then see what happens from there. I think my XE flying is going to come back, definitely, but just not right now. At the moment, I want to look at other things. I want to learn to fly a paramotor, so I'm going to Devon to go and do that, and I'm going to do that with the guys that I was training with out in Turkey. So I'll get my paramotor conversion course done, fly a paramotor, see how I'll get on with that one. So I'll be one of them noisy bastards in the air that nobody likes. That probably suits my mentality really well, but we'll see. We'll see where that one takes me as well. But it's a fantastic sport. I absolutely love paragliding, and as I said, I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I've got one more. Oh yes, there we go. One more for us. Sorry. There we go. So, what's in it for you? Really, you've got to think about is, do I want to do an SIV or go further? You don't have to do an SIV. I think it's a very, very useful skill to have, and it does open your eyes to what that, as Robin said, what that wing can do. Get the right people around you, I think, is probably one of the most important things. If you get 2 or 3 of the right people around you, that's all you need. You don't need a lot. Just having a couple of the right people around you that are, that think the way maybe the same way you do, but can motivate you, but can give you good advice, but also understand what you're doing. Finding the right school. Don't go by the reputation of people or just the name. Jockey Sanderson, yes, he does the most amazing videos. The videos he does are brilliant. He does a great SIV school, but I wouldn't have chosen his. I think the schools that I've chosen have been good for me. But then Jockey might be good for you. Fly Sussex might be good for you. You need to basically do some research and then go and speak to the people. So disregard the opinions and negatives that you'll find. Own your own mistakes. And the one thing I really find with Acro is when you start getting involved in Acro, it's like a family. Everybody looks out for each other. You know, you'd be on the beach and people I don't even know will come up to me and talk to me about things, and you know, you're right with this, or you did this, or you did this, or you did that. It's a very, very close-knit sort of group because of what we do. In paragliding, there's not many people that do it, and it's not for everyone. You know, it just sort of flicks a switch with me, and I just enjoy it. But yeah, go for it and enjoy your flying. So I hope that you know, one, you find it entertaining, you know, and if you walk away with just one thing out of that, thinking about what you're going to do in the next 6 months and next year, to me, I think, well, that's a win. That's a win for me. You know, it's been worth my time then. So, but 6 weeks in Oludeniz, I don't recommend that. That's a bit too long. Maybe 4.
I guess you change that. 6 weeks paragliding in Oludeniz. It's a fantastic place for partying.
But you don't have the time. You're knackered at the end of it. You get to the end of the day, and I mean, a lot of times I'll be in bed by 8:30. You finish flying, you come back on, you have one beer, and you think, oh, that's it. You think, oh, I've got another run to do tomorrow, so you think, oh, beer, and you go to bed. I had some of the best night's sleep ever out there. Is to go back absolutely exhausted. You just mentally, you just burn every brain cell out of your head. And then you get up and do it again. Breakfast was always great fun. We had a guy called Darcy out there who's Lee Tribon's cameraman, who's very, very sarcastic. And I like a bit of sarcasm, so we used to play insult tennis in the morning, so he'd come down and literally within 10, 20 seconds we'd be at each other, and that's it. It used to be quite entertaining. So, but I also had my bad days out there as well, which wasn't particularly nice to be around. When I come down, I had this grey cloud over my head and it wasn't good. So. But, you know, I admit that. I wrote an article for the BHPA magazine, which, by the looks of it, they're going to be running, which will go over 2 months, which basically is a write-up of everything you've sort of seen here, with pictures of other bits and pieces. So, but I don't, because I thought, well, it's good to see. Everyone likes to be brave and everyone wants to be the hero, but in reality, you know, we all know what we go through. But not many people actually put it down in writing and actually put their hands up and admit it. And if that helps other people, that's worth it. You know, it's a natural thing. Fear is a natural thing. Fear is a good thing, you know, if you understand it. And that's what I'm now starting to do, is understand it, of how to actually manage it and not suppress it. You know, you don't want to be in a situation where you're standing on, you know, New Haven cliffs, for instance, or Beachy Head. I've got to launch. I'm absolutely terrified of doing it. I'm petrified. I've got to launch. I mean, the best thing is, well, why? Why do you have to? You could always just step back and do it again. What is the bit that's really terrifying you? You could be fine when you get up in the air, but you know, better to be on the ground wishing you're up there than in the air wishing you're on the ground. But fear is, you know, it's a natural thing we have, and it's something that we do have to manage and look out for, and try and use it positively if we can.
A lot of the coaching of the new CPs and the Red Ribbons is dealing with that. First time out of school, I'm not sure I want to launch. It's too busy.
Yeah.
It's too windy. It's fine. There's lots of separation. Wind speed's good. Wait till it's not too gusty. Right, go. How was that? Fantastic.
Yeah. I think one of the hardest steps you make is coming from out of school into the club environment. That big gap. I mean, Red Ribbon. Yeah, it's a great thing to have, because you've got that stepping stone. I found it, the first time I went through it, I found it very tough. I don't look like a fool. Well, you look more of a fool if you go tearing off into the bushes than you would if you actually just turn around to someone and say, "Excuse me, do you mind if you just check out for me?" So that's how I met Steve, with, on the hill with...
In the bushes.
He just come out of the bushes. Yeah, old bushwhacker. He come out with his flips and steps, and but that's how I met him, and I got a great mate out of it. It's I had a great time flying with Steve last year with some really, really good laughs, and hopefully we'll have some more in the future. It's just paths are going in different directions at the moment. We'll still fly together a bit this year, hopefully. But we'll see where it goes. But you know, in this sport, you're gonna meet some amazing people. And the best thing is some of these people you're actually going to meet and you're going to pass as friends, and that could go on for a while, you know, because you've got something in common with everybody on that hill, you know, you want to take off. But you just got to find the right people.
Particularly on a course where you're sharing an experience for maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks. I think that's an area where you do tend to bond with a group of people. And
you've got something
see
in common
them again, even if they're not from around this area.
Yeah, it's, air sports are a strange one. I was a cameraman in skydiving, and it's the same thing with the air sports, is that you do get that bond with people that, you know, you fly with, because it's not like playing football or badminton or, you know, golf. You don't get that same sort of friendship, I find, with those sort of sports. So you get much more like an association or acquaintance, whereas paragliding, you do make some good friends because of the nature, I think, of the sport and what you're actually doing. Any aviation is dangerous. Anything that takes you 5 metres off the ground has got the potential to do a bit of mischief. So, but we accept it. That's what we do. I don't think it is. You know, people think you're an adrenaline junkie doing this, and I don't think it is. For me, the Acro is managing energy and managing power. Of turning something very aggressive into something controllable but beautiful in the air.
I think like a lot of extreme sports, about managing risk as well.
Yeah.
You do everything you can to, if you've got to eliminate, at least reduce that risk to tolerable levels. Anybody got any questions for Gary, or do you need more beer?
They're all still awake. So that's a good start.
First class door again.
I have one. Skydiving and paragliding. How is the difference in the fear bit of it?
Skydiving. This is harder. This has been asked me before. What do I prefer? Which do I find harder? Paragliding. Skydiving, you 12,000 feet, jump out of a plane, 50 seconds, drop like a rock, open a parachute, land, go do it again. You do 12 of those a day as a cameraman. And it gets to a point where it's a bit like riding a bike, which is when it starts to get dangerous because you get blasé about it. Whereas paragliding is, the learning curve is just like that all the time. You know, as you think you've learned something, then there's something else, and something else, and something else. It's a lot tougher. I enjoyed the skydiving, but all I wanted to be was a cameraman. I did my AFF course, and I saw a guy climbing out the plane and hanging on the wings, hanging on the door frame with his fingertips with the camera in his head, and I thought that's what I want to do. But in that time of my life, I was in a situation that I could actually give everything up and go and do it. So I moved to Spain, worked for a centre, and then I did 3.5, 4 years out there as a cameraman for them, and I loved it. But if I had the choice of that period of time or this, I'll take this. I'll take this sport, without a shadow of a doubt, because this has got so many different avenues. It's got some similarities. I would say that with skydiving you have flat flying, which is the relative work. That's a bit like XC, because most people do that. Then you get the free flyers, where they do the head down and sit flying or whatever. That's sort of acro. And then you get the base jumping, and that's when it gets really severe. And that, to me, with paragliding, is the speed wings. Those guys, and they're the absolutely tiny T-tail wings that, I mean, there's one that could have been, it seemed about the same size as that slide there. It was absolutely tiny, and the guy had to run so fast off the 1800, anything goes wrong with that wing, he's just running straight off the cliff. But and the speed those things come down, that I wouldn't do. That's not for me. So I know my limits. I looked at it and I thought, no, I'm not into that one. I've done base jumping. I did 12 base jumps. I did one big one, and then I thought, no, that's not for me either. But there's the same thing with the sport is, you've got the different disciplines in the sport, and it's whatever interests you is the right one for you. There's none that are better than others. It's not like because you do acro, you do this. I mean, there's a lot of things that you learn from acro which are really, really good for XE, because of course you're just continuously used to stalling and rebuilding a wing, which is great if anything goes wrong on XE, but you don't have to have that. You know, I think SIV, you know, if you're going to serious failure XE, I think you should definitely be looking at it. And it's actually, I found it actually really enjoyable. not everyone found it enjoyable, but I loved it. SIV is a fun place for me to go to now. As Robin said, to go and find out what that wing can do, the design that's gone into it, what they've actually made. That amazing piece of engineering you've got above your head that crumples up into a bag, and then you stick on your back and then go and launch off a hill. You know, we've got the only aircraft that you basically flat pack it, carry it on your back, open it up on the hill, assemble it on the hill, and then take off backwards. You know, how many aircraft do you know that you can do that with? It is an amazing piece of it. Like I said, you can lose 50% of that wing, and the thing will still fly if you do the right things with it. So,
Quick question about when you were in twists.
yes,
I mean, you've done small parachuting, I've done the same. Like,
yeah,
But when we had twists,
yeah,
I've had it a couple of times, and kicking out
Yeah.
was perfectly alright on a round shoot.
yeah.
Is it not an option with those sort of
It
things?
depends on where the wing. If the wing's above you, if you've got riser twist and your wing is above you, you haven't got a cravat and it's sitting out there, yes, you can kick out of that quite easily. The main thing is stopping the rotation. Once you get rotation with the wing, it builds up very quickly, and if you get riser twists and you lock your brakes on, whatever position those brakes are on when you get that riser twist, that's what you're going to have. So if you've got one brake, let's say left-hand brake locked on, you get riser twist, then that is going to turn that wing left and it's just going to spiral. So if the wing's above you, I get that you can. Well, that's what I have a couple of times. Once I've got the wing above the head, yeah, you can kick with legs and you can get that momentum going and it will come out. The other one is getting above the risers and twisting out, but it all depends on the wing you're going to be flying. Obviously, the higher the performance of the wing, the faster it's going to go. Acro wings go really, really quickly. And your circumstances, and also the ability you've got. I mean, you've got, yeah.
How much time you've got?
You look at the difference between my first reserve throw and then the last video. The first reserve throw was like, oh, riser twist, bang, reserve out. That was it, because that was my mental ability at the time. Is I worked out what was going wrong and thought, okay, that's it, this is finished. Whereas I had plenty of height, I could have actually had a play with it, maybe got above the risers, got the lines and the risers, stopped the rotation, get the wing above my head and kicked out of it. And then you look on the last one, it was a case of, right, I've got time here, let's give it a go. Let's stop it twisting, let's stop the rotation. Because I've got two riser twists. Once you can stop the rotation, two, you can still pull the brake through. But that's where the training comes in, because your mental ability increases the more you do. You start, some of the stuff becomes automatic and you start thinking about things more. But that's, so you look at the difference, and I've done this over 18 months. I mean, all right, I've gone pretty well full onto it and sold a car and a mountain bike to fund it. And now I'm trying to find if I can sell a lung to fund the next one. It's getting expensive. But that's it, it's a case of, it's an ongoing process. But, knowing where your reserve is, I think, is number one, and knowing that you can find it, get a good grip on it, and you're confident to throw it. I think it's the first one. And as Robin said, knowing your height. If you're low, don't waste your time trying to fix it. Get that reserve out. There's quite a few people who have spiraled into the ground. Quite a few people have gone into an auto rotation as well, which is a sad one, because an auto rotation is actually a really easy one to fix once you know what it is. Once you've got that feeling of the wing flying forwards and you're going backwards, it's actually an easy one to fix. But until you've had that, been in that situation and know what it feels like, as Stephen will tell you that, once you're in that situation, what it feels like, then it's an easy one to fix. Anyone got anything else?
So for you, was Acro at all about trying to get the adrenaline rush and like getting the base jumping, or?
No, I don't think it's a good question. I don't think it is. To me, it's the managing that energy. You've got a wing that can generate huge amounts of energy very, very quickly, and it's about controlling it and understanding it. You can't. My first problem I had was I did a hard exit out of spiral, which you can do on a serial wing, no problem at all, and Toby teaches those, which are good, because if you get into a spiral and you bleed the energy off, you're still going down. It takes quite a bit of time. You could do 3 or 4 rotations before you get the wing in control. Hard exit or fast exit is where you come out and then you do a hard left brake input, and it will then basically stop the rotation. It pings you up and out. You do that on acro wing. That's what you do to generate the energy to do a tumble, where you go right over the wing. So effectively, inadvertently, what I've done is I've done my first entry into a tumble, but just gone over the top of the wing, stopped over the top, and then came straight down, which is not really, you know, the way you want to learn to do it. So I think part of it is, but it's not the main emphasis. You know, most acro runs at my stage, they go wrong. You know, I come down thinking, I didn't go too well, but when you get one right, you know, it's an amazing feeling. But it is about that, you know, managing the energy and controlling this sort of potentially uncontrollable beast. But I'm now understanding that, you know, the energy and the power in that wing is what you want. You don't want that wing slow and soft. You want the energy in it, because that's when it's in its safe zone. You just need to know how to manage it and how to come out of it controlled. And that's what I was doing in the last week, where I was just basically taking the wing overs down to little wing overs, but just making everything nice and clean and smooth. So every time you come out, instead of coming out, if you come out of a wing over, for instance, you come out, if the wing's over this side, then you put a brake input to square everything up, so you get a nice square exit, making everything nice and smooth. Because once you can do that, then you can start putting the energy back in and start developing it. Whereas, you know, when you first do your first spar and you go whang yourself into a spar, you think, wow, that's bloody amazing. But you come out really messy. You don't know which direction you're coming out. So now it's a case of, I want to enter the spar in, say, facing the beach, and I want to come out facing the beach, and I want to come out this way. It's actually saying, instead of just coming out of it, I want to come out facing that way. And that's where sort of I think the enjoyment comes in, is polishing it. But it's a long journey, and you see some of the guys out there that are good at it. It's like, I'm never going to get to that level, no. But each to their own. You know, it's you know, XE. I get XE. It's just not for me right now. It'll probably come back. But the 6 weeks in Turkey, I knew I would come back a different pilot, and yeah, I have. But I'm still not exactly sure where it is. So I'll find it out in the next few weeks. So at the moment, I'm not that worried about going up and flying. Just working out where I want to go with it, and just enjoying the flying instead of trying to fly every single possible moment I can to chase the hours. I'm not interested in chasing the hours. I always find it funny with it's the same with paragliding as it is with skydiving. Skydiving, it used to be how many jumps have you done. Paragliding is how many hours have you got. I think the more relevant one is how many takeoff and landings have you done and how many have been successful. So I think the pilot that's got 50 hours and 100 takeoff and landings is better than the pilot that's got 50 hours and done 10 takeoff and landings, because he's put the top to bottoms in. He's gone up the hill thinking, oh, I'm going to fly no matter what. I'm here, I'm going to fly to the bottom, do a top to bottom, walk back up again. Steve is a classic for it. You know, he's got, how many hours you got now, Steve?
Lost count.
There you go. That's it.
And it's the launch,
Yeah.
the landing, you know.
That's exactly it.
3 launches, 220 hours.
Yeah.
I suggest we call time on
Yes.
it. Can I thank Gary very much for a fascinating talk. We may want to watch it again on the video, and thanks to Dimitrios for turning up and doing all the work that he does month after month for us. And once again, a 45-minute talk has lasted an hour and 3/4.
Yeah, surprised I can talk that long.
Okay, great.